Hello and welcome to a special edition of Motor Week. The whole team is here at the Midlands Motor Museum at Bridgnorth in a very chilly Shropshire.
If you were watching last week, you'll have seen our personal selections, 5 cars that were launched in 1998. This week we put our heads together to come up with 10 selections. That's 10 cars all launched in 1998. They range from the Jaguar XKR to the Mercedes A-Class.
And I want every single one of them.
They're mine.
That's right, coming up in the next half hour, BMW's new M Coupe, which was launched only last month in Spain, the Land Rover Discovery and the new Peugeot 206. Plus, I'll be taking a look at Ford's new futuristic wonder, the Focus.
So, a welcome trip to Switzerland for me and the camera team earlier on this year for the launch of VW's latest baby, the Lupo. Why is there a panda here? So, why does Volkswagen need another small car when they've already got the superb little Polo? Well, the answer's easy. When the Polo arrived, it was a very small car, a Mini. Over the years, in their wisdom, the men at Wolfsburg have evolved and stretched and widened their handy runabout into a car that is now actually bigger than the original Golf. So, this bizarre evolution means the Golf has got bigger and the Polo's taken the Golf's place, and that leaves a gap for a new small car. Still with me? Good. Although the Lupo is much smaller than the Polo, clever design has delivered the same interior space. And the 1.475 brake horsepower engine gives more than adequate pace for both city and motorway life, and very good handling too. Even at entry level, the specification's really good. Airbags, electric windows and a galvanised body shell that's guaranteed against rust for 12 years.
The splendid grounds of the Midlands Motor Museum are hardly the ideal place to test drive the new Land Rover Discovery in low gear ratio, but there's a bit of a grassy slope, so why not? Now, as you know, you should never judge a book by its cover. Beauty is only skin deep. It's what's underneath that counts. Wise words indeed, and the authors of them may well have been inspired by driving the new Land Rover Discovery. It may look the same, whether you like it or not is a matter of taste, but all the important changes are underneath. Biggest news is the all-new 5-cylinder diesel engine, which employs high-pressure direct injection for increased power, torque and refinement. This results in a quicker vehicle with loads of low-down torque for off-roading. The plush new interior provides forward-facing rear seats, improved space and plenty of gizmos to keep the kids quiet. Discovery owners said, keep the styling. So they did. Discovery owners said, improve the road handling. And they did that too. The chassis is a lot stiffer and the excellent active cornering enhancement means that this car now slices through the curves. It's still a big rock, but now there's a lot less roll.
The biggest selling type of car in the USA is the 4-cab pickup, but it's never caught on in this country. Well, just maybe the next car in our class of '98 selection will change that. At least that's the hope of Mitsubishi, because they'll want their L200 4Life 4-cab pickup to catch on in the UK. Well, guess who's been for a drive? Howdy. The American market loves pickups. They buy them in their millions. It's the standard car over there. But their American tastes have never quite been European tastes. For instance, the Americans also like brightly coloured golfing trousers and incredibly large thighs. So their taste will never necessarily coincide exactly with ours. So it's a brave move to try and introduce the market with something really very new indeed that we're not used to. 50% of those pickups sold in America are the 4-cab derivatives and versions like this. So it does make sense if you are trying to educate the market to bring in something that has perhaps a little more practicality than an ordinary 2-seater pickup ever would. Having said that, the practicality is pretty limited. 4-seater it might be, but if you've got 4 people, or even, as all the booklets say, possibly 5, I don't know where you're going to put the luggage. There is only one luggage space, and I'm standing in it. And if it were raining, I'd be getting wet. And if I were left overnight in it, I'd be stolen and all my serial numbers scratched off. Therefore, it's never going to be as practical as a 4x4, an ordinary one that we already know. And at £20,000 more for this, with all the flashy chrome bits on, that's an awful lot of money. You could buy an awful lot of 4x4 for that. No, primarily this car is about one thing and one thing only, image. It's about looking good. It is definitely more surfs up than mud plugging. Capable off-roader it may be, but at the end of the day, it's going to spend more time mounting the curbs outside the wine bars than ever it is tramping up and down over hill and dale. Basically, it's a macho feel-good thing.
Now, if you've got a bit more spare cash than the 16 grand you'll need to buy the L200, I've got a fantastic suggestion for you. But I suppose I should point out that you're going to need an awful lot more cash. £41,000 to be precise. But what the heck, I reckon BMW's M Coupe is worth every bit of it. Love it or loathe it, it's one car that's guaranteed to turn heads. Like all BMWs, this car is superbly built, but the real treat lies under the bonnet. 3.2 litres of Bavarian beefcake that you'll also find in the M Roadster. The cartoon-like styling is controversial, but it works for me. The new rear end means there's plenty more luggage space than you'll find in the Roadster. But because it still only has 2 seats, you won't be bothered by pesky people wanting a lift. So if there's no extra seats in there, I hear you ask, why get rid of the roof? Well, it means you get a stiffer chassis, and this means a drive that will send you wild. Fun with a capital F. With around 320 brake horsepower, this is a real supercar, snapping at the heels of a Porsche 911. Speed is limited to a more than adequate 155 miles per hour, and the sprint to 60 is made in just 5.4 seconds.
One of the quirkiest new cars of '98 is actually based on a van. Me lords, ladies and gentlemen, the Citroën Berlingo Multispace. We first saw this device as a concept car at the Motor Show 2 years ago. It's unashamedly based on Citroën's Berlingo van. It's already on sale in Europe, where it's been a huge hit with over 50,000 examples sold. And it's no slouch. Citroën claimed 0 to 60 in around 12 seconds and a maximum speed of 100 miles an hour. I should think the draft from the sunroof gets a bit more at that speed though. But in the Cotswold lanes on a summer's evening, it's an excellent form of transport. Simple, well laid out instruments, all the controls fall to hand, and quite a sophisticated radio cassette. The car we tested was finished in a particularly virulent green, not quite to my taste, and you wouldn't say it was good looking either, but you can't help warming to this endearing little car. My prediction, they'll sell as many as they can import.
The 206 was a bit of a challenge for Peugeot, mostly because it had to replace the incredibly successful 205. Start naming successful best-selling cars of the 1980s, and somewhere amongst them, the 205 GTI is bound to crop up. In 1994, when the 205 was finally killed off, the powers that be decided not to replace it, but to soldier on with the 106 and the 306. But somehow, after that, there always seemed to be a teensy-weensy gap in the range. A gap about the size of, oh, say, Bournemouth.
I drove the 1.4 and 1.6 litre petrol versions. The 1.4 was definitely the weaker of the two. In fact, it felt decidedly feeble. There was the mid-range there, but in all honesty, it feels more like a 1.2. The 1.6 was stronger, with again more mid-range. It is an 8-valver, quite a drivable engine and quite useful around town, but certainly not something you'd ever expect to press on with, and certainly not something that is ever going to rev past about 4,500.
Engines range from the frugal but paltry 1.1 litre diesel to the 1.6 litre 90 bhp XSI, but they're all pretty lethargic. We'll have to wait for the GTI version due early next year. Well, coming up after the break, a car that was destined to be included in any pick of the year for '98, Ford's radical new Focus.
And I'll be in a Wolfsburg that was even colder than it is here, checking out Volkswagen's new Bug. We'll see you after the break. Now, the winter weather here in Shropshire isn't that different to the weather in Wolfsburg, where Volkswagen recently launched the new VW Beetle. Now, I loved the old Beetle. I learnt to drive in one, and I can think of very few cars that provoke such strong emotions in their owners. So the Bug for the new millennium had an awful lot to live up to, and it didn't disappoint. Now, I'd like you just to stop for a minute and spare a thought, if you can, for poor old Father Christmas. You see, he's having a tough time this year, fulfilling all those Christmas wishes. His problem is that this is at the top of the Christmas wish list this year. It's the Volkswagen Beetle, back with a bang, and it seems we just can't get enough of them. Volkswagen unveiled this ray of sunshine in Motor City Detroit earlier this year. The mere sight of this car being driven onto the stage at Detroit was enough to bring a tear to the eye of even the most hardened motoring journalist. After all, the Beetle is one of the few cars that really sums up a whole generation. And as we love nothing better than to wallow in the past, 90s Beetle is the perfect vehicle to make that journey back to the 60s in. Now, 90s Beetle is a little confusing. Its silhouette is unmistakably the Beetle, but that's about all it shares with the original people's car. For a start, you won't find the engine in the back. It's been promoted to the front, and you get a choice of this 2-litre petrol version or a 1.9-litre TDI, both of them borrowed from the Golf. The Beetle also shares its floor pan with the Golf, along with the Audi A3, the Seat Toledo, the Skoda Octavia, and no doubt quite a few more. And once you get inside, you'll probably find that you recognise plenty of the switchgear as well. But do take heart, all you nostalgia fans out there, because nestling inside the minimal black and chrome interior, you'll find a true hint of 60s flower power, a bud vase. But while the 90s driver may well nip to their designer florist to pick up some trendy tropical bloom to keep in it, they're just as likely to be making full use of the power outlet for their laptop, putting their cappuccinos in the cup holders, and will no doubt have noted with approval the fact that there are heated seats for those cold winter months. The thing about the Beetle is that although we did love the old one very much, after all 21 million of them were sold around the globe, if we're being honest, they were actually pretty awful to drive. And I should know. I learnt to drive in a 1303 Beetle and for years thought that the awkward pedal position, the bus-like steering wheel and the appalling heater were normal in a car. But I'm happy to report that this 2-litre petrol version isn't bringing back any of those memories for me. This is Volkswagen motoring 90s style. The 4-cylinder engine is good for 115 brake horsepower, and yes, it will actually get you from 0 to 60. It also has a top speed of 112 miles per hour. Herbie will be turning in his grave. The new Beetle does drive remarkably like the Golf, which isn't, I suppose, that surprising. In fact, dare I say it, the ride actually feels firmer and is a bit more enjoyable than that of the Golf. The 4-speed automatic transmission is smooth and it responds well. And the brakes, well, they're absolutely light years away from those spongy old things the Beetle used to have. But let's be honest, who really gives a damn about the 90s technology, the 12-year anti-corrosion warranty, or the extremely high levels of safety? The real reason we will buy this car in droves is because of how it makes us feel. When you first see it, you don't know whether you want to hug it or drive it. I can feel a remake of Herbie coming on. Even if you can get your hands on one of the 1,000 left-hand drives that VW will be bringing in next Easter, the prices seem to be spiralling. In the States, the base model costs around 10 grand. One of these left hookers, if you can get your hands on one, is likely to be closer to 16. And when the right-hand drives finally do arrive, the prices will mean that the people's car is now rather out of reach to many of us. But Volkswagen know that even the price won't put us off. Beetle mania has set in, and there are that many people desperate to get their hands on one that the factory in Mexico is at production to 160,000 a year. But when you think of the waiting list that exists in the States, in Europe and also here in the UK, you realise that it's going to be quite a few Christmases before good old Santa can make all the boys and girls who want one happy. So thank goodness there's an alternative. You can actually buy your own pet Beetle. It will fit perfectly into your Christmas stocking and it should keep you happy until you can get your hands on the real thing.
The Astra is not as well built as the VW Golf, neither does it boast the cutting-edge looks of Ford's Focus, but it made it into our top 10 with this, the new SRI. The old Astra GTE had a reputation for an excellent engine in an unsophisticated chassis. The new SRI is a much more rounded product. Straight-line performance is entertaining, but it's in the chassis that this car really shines. Loads of modern hot hatches have dialed out the fun factor in pursuit of flattering handling. The SRI has steering which gives tremendous feedback from those wide front tyres. Inside, it's functional and unremarkable. Not as solid as the Golf and certainly not as radical as the Focus, but still a vast improvement over its predecessor. So, who will buy the new Astra? And who'll choose it over the Focus or the Golf? Well, for those who find the looks of the Focus a bit too much, the Astra is more conservative. And whilst the Golf is a superb car, it has now lost the sporting edge to the new Astra.
Looking for a sports car, sir? Bit of a driving enthusiast, are we? Or are we more the everyday practical sort of driver? Well, the Volvo V70 AWD claims to be for all three of you. Evolved from the monstrous 850 T5, which struggled to get the power onto the road with front-wheel drive, the V70 AWD handles the power better due to delivery from all four wheels. High levels of build quality maintain Volvo's reputation alongside the more glitzy German marques. Their reputation for safety is enviable, and for the V70, rightly so. This car has so many airbags, Richard Branson might fancy his chances of floating around the world in it. Sitting in the stylish cabin is perfectly pleasant, and smooth delivery of its 250 horses will propel this particular balloon to something around 150 miles an hour, passing through 60 in around 7 seconds. And the satellite navigation system means that this rapid progression is always in the right direction.
Last but by no means least, our Motorweek's pick of 98, a car which really took the industry and the press by surprise when it was launched at the Geneva Motor Show. I'm talking about the replacement for Ford's much-loved Escort, the new Focus, a car that managed to pull the rug from underneath both Volkswagen and Vauxhall, who launched new versions of their Golf and Astra this year. So I travelled to Normandy to sample a little Calvados and see what the Focus was all about. Most of us from time to time have required the services of an agency to provide an escort for that big do. Yes, for years now, car rental companies have been sending the great British public out in what's become known as Ford's Old Faithful. Since 1968, the Escort has been one of the most popular cars around, but not for too much longer. By the year 2000, the past will become a blur, because for Ford, the future is Focus.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I be the first to introduce to you the newest addition to the Ford range, the Ford Focus.
Angling to upset the VW Golf Cart, this ultra-modern looking vehicle, which takes many of its styling cues from its big brothers Car, Puma and Cougar, is ready to make Escort Man re-evaluate what he wants from a car. Or is it? Probably the most striking aspect of the new Focus is, of course, its looks. It's a car that you either love or hate. There's very little middle ground, and personally, I like it. It blows the staid Astra and Golf out of the water with its style, which Ford call New Edge design. It has a flowing form with crisp edges, sharp intersections and these taut lines, and of course these distinctive new headlights at the front. It's the rear of the car though that has caused most discussion, with many people feeling there's something not quite right. The flowing lines don't quite flow. The Focus is longer and wider than the Escort, and that's meant so much more room inside the cabin. Even rear seat passengers won't feel as cramped. On the downside though is perhaps the boot, which, whilst adequate, you'd think would quickly fill up whilst loading for a long summer holiday. This really is a great car to drive, and everyone who's driven it will tell you much the same. Now, Ford claim that the Focus has class-leading ride, steering, stability, handling and refinement, and I, for one, am not going to argue with that. We've already seen how good the Puma and Cougar are, and the Focus just seems to continue that line and push the boundaries even further. The Focus comes with a wide range of engines and body styles. Engines are 1.4, 1.6, 1.8 and 2-litre petrol, plus a new 1.8-litre Endura direct injection turbo diesel. Probably the most fun will be had in the 130 brake horsepower 2-litre 16-valve engine, which at the moment is the fastest and most powerful, 125 miles per hour and 0 to 60 in just over 9 seconds. Body styles, well, take your pick. 3-door, 5-door, 4-door and an estate, all with that distinctive new edge styling. Trim styles are varied too, CL, Z-Tech, LX and the top of the range gear versions. So production of the Escort will limp on for another year or so, and that will be it. But why oh why would you buy a new Escort when you can have new edge design, radical styling, and a car that, if nothing else, certainly stands out from the crowd?
On next week's show, we have our review of the year. We'll be taking a look at the amazing cars and also the developments in technology that have made 1998 such a great year in the motor industry. Cheers.
Cheers.
From us all on Motor Week, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!